Welcome to Changing Suits. We're your hosts, Bao.
And Taj, discussing the latest news, views, and general life for us Western Asians.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Hi, welcome to Changing Suits. My name's Bao.
And my name's Taj.
Did you like how I did my name's Bao? I thought I'd change it up a bit.
Sounds good to me.
Today, we're going to discuss, after all the contemplation we've had about marriage, divorce, the problems with in-laws and outlaws and all this sort of stuff, would we want our children, or would we push our children to get married if they decided or told us that they didn't want to get married?
For me, I think things have changed now. I think before I got married, I would have thought, yes, I would have pushed my children to get married. But I think things have changed in the sense of we're hearing so many people getting divorces and stuff like that. I'm not saying every marriage leads to divorce, but we're hearing so many marriages that are in trouble. And for us,
Can I just say, when people say so many marriages are in trouble, one thing I always remember is, in Bridget Jones, that scene where Mark Darcy and Bridget are sitting on a table and they're like, oh, are you planning to get married, Bridget? And she's like, oh, 1 in 4 marriages end in divorce or something. And then he turns around and says, oh, no, it's 1 in 3. It always reminds me of that scene. Just to say,
Okay. So obviously we know what movies you've been watching.
Yeah. Well, Christmas has just come and gone, hasn't it? So
that is true. Yeah. So when we were younger, the thing for us is, and still is for people getting married, marriage is seen as a status. You need to get married to the right person, as in they need to have the right job, they need to have enough income, they need to have the right caste. It's like this list that you need to go through and tick it like a shopping list, just from the parents.
Yeah.
Just from the parents, and then is your shopping list that you need to tick.
But the thing is, this is always an interesting one. So in the good old days, people would get married younger, right? Now, as we're in 2022 now, people are getting married older. What's your opinion? Do you think, aside from the fact that we're asking, oh, should we do the marriage thing, what do you think? Earlier or older?
I think it's for each individual is different, because these days people want to establish and work out what they are before they jump in and try to learn what another person is about.
Yeah, but the thing is, the problem with that is, as you get older, you do get stuck in your ways. You expect certain things. You have certain standards. Not that I'm saying younger people don't have standards, but they're a lot more easily adaptable. I was going to say moldable, but I thought, firstly, it sounds strange, but also it sounds like, oh, so why would you need to get molded? Like, is that a good thing? Surely you should know what you want. But do you see what I'm saying? So as you get older, you do have more of a shopping list.
But when you're getting married, it's seen as, let me have all my fun first, and then I'll settle down, and then I'll do the right thing and have the kids and blah, 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 blah. So marriage in some circumstances is seen to be something that you'll do once you've done all your fun bit of your life.
But then if you met your partner earlier in life, surely that would mean that you have that fun together, or even not even earlier, just in life.
But it all depends on what kind of state of mind you're in. Maybe you're not thinking about marriage. Maybe education is the forefront of what you're thinking about, so you're not just there. I think everyone's got their own different timings in life.
That's very neutral. Talk about sitting on the fence.
I know. But one thing that I think is still sad in this day and age is South Asian families, we still look at the caste system, as in, okay, you can't get married to this person, you can't get married to that person if you're not in the right caste. And this happens in quite a lot of different religions, blah, blah, blah. Actually, it's not religion, it's culture, should I say. And it still goes on. And it's sad. Some people...
Well, technically, it is religion as well.
Okay, some people it's religion and some people it's just culture. But anyway, some people, they'll fall in love, they'll get married to the wrong person in the wrong caste, and they decide, right, I can't find anyone, is similar to the person that I fell in love with, and they make a decision. I don't think they make it as in, I'm not going to get married. It just happens that they don't end up getting married because they can't find that true love. Or in other cases, you have to decide, either you go with what the family say and not get married, or you make that decision to break away from the family, which I think is really sad, but it does happen. It's like an ultimatum.
But then, do you think that still happens? I mean,
Yeah, it
now
does happen. It does happen.
I get that, but it's definitely to a less of an extent. I would have
I don't
thought.
think so. It's different communities in different ways. We're probably going to say a lesser extent because we've seen that it is become lesser in the circles that we mix in. But there is that sense of that if you don't get married to this person in this caste, then you can't get married at all. Because they say there is a saying, Rana Bana. So the way you stay, the way you live in a certain way, you're brought up in a certain way. So you need to get married to someone that's similar to you so they can understand the way that you speak, the way that you eat, just your whole way of life.
But then,
So
what's your
life,
opinion on that? Because I get that. So I know, looking at the castings, it's very much looking back at the eastern side of our life. What our families did in India or wherever they came from. But it is an interesting point, isn't it? So people that are from the same caste or whatever, they do tend to do, their families from the background have done the same things. But the problem is now, obviously, you're not doing the same things as your families back home. But then you've still got that.
building, being a bricklayer or being a farmer or something.
Exactly. But the thing is, that is still part of your personality. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's the right word to use. You're part of your identity.
Mm.
So I get why people would say that, as in do it in a similar cast or whatever, because you've got that similarity.
What about the saying opposites attract? So you learn about each other, and in your relationship it is about learning about each other, and not everything's going to be the same. Someone might like pizza. This is a very wrong comparison, but someone might like pizza, the other person might like chips. Do you know what I mean? You'll have differences.
But
There's
then you're
always going to
always,
be
yeah,
differences in what
that's
you
what I was
do.
about to say. There's always going to be differences. But then maybe divorce is being brought out. Well, I was going to say, um, because the fact that we are following, the differences, but that's not true because, as we know, it could be from people from very similar backgrounds. So it's a bit of a tough one, isn't it? I don't think you can say, oh, because they're not in the same caste, they end up in more divorce. You can't say that. But
I think
the point I'm trying to
mm,
make is,
mm,
I get why our families said because that way, when families sit together, parents sit together, and they've got a bit more of a bond of, oh, this is what we used to do back at home, that sort of thing. However, obviously, we know discrimination of this sort shouldn't be happening, and it's not relevant now. We're not doing the same things we did back home. But for families, it is important. So they've got that similarity, I guess.
so it's a case of, then you're not, like they say, you're not marrying the person, you're marrying the family. So
But we all know that's true, though, especially in an Asian family.
but if the couple don't get on, does it matter if the family get on?
Oh no, definitely not, because that's your be all end all, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
but you're still
So
getting married to the family, aren't you?
yeah, but if you as a couple get on, and okay, you have problems with the family, well, you as a couple get on then. It's going to be you two that have the life together. You're the ones that are going to have
Yeah,
possibly the kids and stuff like that.
that's a nice black and white way of thinking of it, isn't it? I mean, where's the grey area of, yeah, you still need to mix with your
Yeah,
partner's
but quite
family.
a lot of people these days are moving out from the in-laws family, like from the joint household and stuff like that, and moving into their own household and bringing up their family in their, your own way. So you don't have to be in each other's faces all the time like it used to be.
But the other thing is, I mean, not only the casting, but there's always, like you've said, there's always going to be differences. And this is where the frustration sometimes comes out, where it's like, well, I mean, we were laughing about this yesterday. Men are from Mars, that's the one. I was going to say Venus, and women are from, you know what I'm trying to say, Mars and Venus, all that sort of stuff. And I have found there are certain conversations where I'm having a conversation with my partner where I'm like, where are you coming from? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, but that could be generally with anyone in life. I mean, we look at us, we're coming from different angles. You know, there's always going to be a difference. Or would they say five fingers on one hand, not one single one of them's the same?
Do you think we sound really drunk in this? We can't even finish sentences properly.
Maybe that's what marriage does to you.
drunk with love, I'd say. Yes. Okay, so going back to the previous question of, yes, there are issues. You know, we brought up the caste issue and we'll talk about other things. But then would you force your child, knowing that, you know people that have got divorced or going through separation, and marriage isn't as rosy as they paint on the Bollywood films. It's not the end of the story. You still got to carry on with the next, 60,
Chapters.
70 years, unfortunately. Right? Which they don't show you in those Indian films. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But then what if your child said, no, I don't want to get married?
Well, my only thing would be, in marriage, you'll have companionship and you
can get a dog.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing. You can get a
You've
dog.
got to ask someone that's got a dog and got a really bad marriage. I'd be like, yeah, definitely prefer the dog.
No, but the reason I think I should know, I shouldn't say I think, but the reason for getting married is so you can grow old together, you can do things together, and you can look back in life and you think, oh, do you remember this bit? Do you remember that bit?
When was the last time you had that conversation with your husband? Oh, do you remember this bit? Do you remember that bit?
He doesn't listen to me, so we probably don't have that conversation.
Oh, there we are then. So it sort of negates your debate then, I guess. Right?
I'm hoping when we get older,
his personality completely changes and he actually listens to what you say.
I'm hoping so. When he has got a device in his hand, yeah, maybe.
Oh, come on. In a few years, there's going to be robots around.
To get married to.
Actually, on that point.
You never know.
But then, see, this is the thing. I think if a marriage is hard, obviously a lot of people come out of marriage and like, bloody hell, I can't do that again. That was tough, right? And a lot of people then think, well, was it worth it? And that is what I'm saying. So as we know, I'm very traditional I've always been quite traditional in my way of thinking, where it's like, people should stay together, should do that. And I have changed my opinion quite a lot. And this is one thing where I am starting to question whether I would force them.
Okay, so what do you think about marriage? Do you think, why get married?
Well, a lot of religions and things like that say it because obviously it's about procreation, and I am taking a line out, Pride and Prejudice. How ridiculous is that? But I know this is really bad to say, but you've got other means of doing it now. So I don't know. I'm of the opinion now where would you want to go through all of the hardship or perhaps nothing sometimes? Does that make sense?
What do you mean by nothing?
Sometimes it's too much of a headache, isn't it? You could just carry on and enjoy life.
So what would you say to your kids if they came to you and said, I don't want to get married?
I think you'd have to have a plan. What is your plan in life? What do you want to do then? If you don't want to do that.
But this is the thing. When we were younger, we were almost made to think, right, you either get educated or that's it, that's the end of the line. You jump off the cliff and you get married, kind of thing. So it's almost like a threat.
But then where did we get that opinion from? Because we didn't have those conversations all that much where it's like, oh yeah, you got to do it. Was it because it was hold on. Let me finish this thought. Was it because we always were trying to be rebellious, where we knew that our parents wanted us to get married, but then you're like, no, I don't have to do everything my parents want me to do, and that's one of the things. Like, I don't want to get married because you've said I get married.
No, because it was happening all around us. That was the thing. You got to a certain age and right, it was time for marriage. And the fact that it's happening around you and this is the people that you mix with is obviously going to have a big impact on the way you're brought up and what your parents think that, your parents want you to do. And if they thought it was wrong, they would have said, oh, you don't need to get married. But there was at no stage
But see,
I'm
I
going to
don't.
take that back at one point. But you know, they didn't say no, you don't need to get married, because that was the natural next step, almost the next step in life. Do your education, get married. What else is there left to do? We weren't shown that there are other things to do, that you can go on, travel the world. It was more like, okay, if you want to do that, why don't you get married and do that on your own time, kind of thing.
But then, see, this is the reason I got married a bit later. It was a bit of a rebellious thing where it's like, well, actually, I don't want to do what you're telling me to do because I don't want to give up my life, because we know that obviously most people tend to move away to wherever their partner is or whatever. And it, it's really bad. It messes up their life. No, joking. No, but it really changes your life. I don't mean mess up. I'm only kidding there. But
That's because you know your husband's going to listen.
Well, but it is a case of your life is changed in a big way. The locations, the places you go, your friends aren't there. These are big things, right?
But do you know something? I was talking to one of my friends, and I was just saying, if we wanted, and we really wanted, and we didn't want to get married, we wouldn't have to get married. So basically, if we decided that we didn't want to get married and we meant it, we wouldn't actually do it. We've done a lot of things in our life where we're like, no, I'm not going to do this. And you've stuck at it. So why are you, this big decision, didn't you stick at it, is the question. It's because you didn't feel that much against it or not doing it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree. You'd want
So
that.
there must have been a part of us that said, yeah, we do actually want to get married. We want to move. And in our thoughts, it was, we want to move to the next stage in our life. And
But
we
see,
did.
but the thing is, this is where life has changed. You don't need to get married to go to the next stage in life. I mean, what is the next stage of life if you wanted kids? Well, nowadays, like I said, you don't need to get married to have kids. You can have kids without marriage, IVF.
But you could do that before as well.
Yeah, but life's changed, culture's changed. People don't blink an eyelid as much as they did before. Okay, I say that very blasé because I know it's not wholly true, but it's a lot more accepted that things have changed. The other part of this is obviously duty. You know, people say, "Farj banda to do this. You're the daughter-in-law, you should be doing this, or you're the son-in-law, you should be doing this." And it's really brought, that sort of thing has really brought something into my mind over the last few days. If a daughter-in-law is expected to do ABC, well, then what is the other party expected to do? What is their role and responsibility?
I think also there is an expectation from women. The women's role is seen as you've got to change everything and you're expected to do everything, whereas the man can just lay down on the sofa.
But then this is exactly the whole reason I'm saying that is because, you know, as a daughter-in-law, you know, you'd be expected to, you know, check in and help your in-laws and do this. But that expectation isn't put on son-in-laws, right? When was the last time you'd expect your husband to phone mum and dad and say, "Oh, how are you doing? How's this person? How's that person?" You don't expect it. You do it yourself, but you don't expect it from him. I mean, for example, in my situation, I know that my husband doesn't tend to like talking to most people, so I tend to do that part of it. If I phone my parents, I don't really pass on the phone. But this was a conversation we had the other day. Well, that's actually my fault, not his fault, because he's never said, "Oh no, I don't want to talk to him." I know that he doesn't want to, but we were in the middle of a fight, so he couldn't admit it. Right? Whereas now, what I'm thinking is, well, if I'm expected to do this, you should be expected to do that as well. And that's something I've sort of come to the realization in the last few days.
But I do agree, because whereas a woman, for example, she'll have a job, the man will have a job. 9 times out of 10, the man's job will be they'll get paid more. But that isn't the issue here. They'll both be working 9 to 5, and the woman is still expected to come home and do the cooking.
Yeah, but then as a man at this point, they should be thinking, well, yeah, you're doing the same thing, and I should be doing the same thing. This comes back to the fact that, yes, we're expected to do it, but the male's role should be also to think, well, no, if we're going to be doing this equally, I shouldn't be sitting on my butt and not doing anything. Not that I'm saying that.
Yeah,
they
but if
shouldn't
you
do
could
that.
get away with doing something, wouldn't you? The expectation is they might do it 1 day, 2 day, but they won't carry on because there's no expectation. It's almost, we're brought up and it's embedded in us as a woman, we should do this, we should do that. And then same for the men as well. It's embedded, oh, you're not expected to do anything. You're
Yeah.
expected to come home and lay on the sofa
I think
and let the woman bring you.
we're always a bit unfair because there are many. I know my husband; he doesn't really tend to sit around too much. He's always busy. So this is a generalization, obviously, but I think, yeah, I agree with that.
No, but
Then,
let's
do you know, there was
let's
something that came up in a conversation where, you know, before people, I feel, were more open to sticking to a marriage despite this happening and that happening, whereas now I feel like people are actually, no, I'm not going to take that. Now, before, I would have been like, no, you've got to stick out marriage. You know, you've got to make it work. You've got to try, right? But now, what I'm starting to think is, well, if your partner wanted to make sure that it worked, then they shouldn't be treating you like that in the first place. So there
so
has to be that fear.
So going back to the subject that we were talking about, say if your child got married and they said, right, this isn't working, I'm out. I
I'm
want a
out.
divorce. I'm
Yeah.
out of here. What would you say? Would you say, right, okay, pack up your bags, come home? What would your advice be?
The tough thing is about divorce is, I was going to say it's final, but it's not even then. It's you can do what you want. You can go back and get married again to the same person. But it's a tough one. If it was my child, that's
Would you say leave and that's it?
well, it comes down to the issue, doesn't it? I mean, if there were certain things that were just not right, domestic violence or this, that, and the other, I think it would be tough to see my child go through that.
See, yeah, but we haven't said cut and dry. No, if they're not happy, get out. So
It's,
we're still
no, but it's still got to
glitchy.
see. I would like to think that I would support my child in whatever they decided, and it's not an easy decision. I'd obviously sit down with them and say, look, this is the advantages, this is the disadvantages of going down that route of divorce, and you've got to realize this, and you're not going to realize it obviously until you're going through and you realize the steps of it. But at the end of the day, if my child was adamant that they were not happy and it wasn't going to work and they didn't see a future in it, I would support them, because we shouldn't be washing our hands off our children. That's not.
But also, for example, when like a woman goes, I don't know, they go back, they speak to their parents, their friends, or anything, siblings, and they say, right, I've had a fight, this, and this has happened, right? 9 times out of 10, the other person will say, don't worry, this happens in a lot of households. Don't worry, let this situation calm down. You can't run away straight away. Go back, it's fine. 9 times out of 10, they will say that.
But
To the
problem,
point,
look,
I'd say 9.5 times out of 10 they
but the
will say that.
problem is, look, we've had fights with our partners where it has got very, very heated. We have had that. All of us have had that. And at that point, you're like, I'd leave right now. All this sort of stuff, right? We know that when emotions run high, I do a runner. No, joking, right? But we understand that. But it has to be done with a clear head of, okay, I'm not going crazy now. We haven't just had a fight, but this is not working because it hasn't been working for this long. And I don't see how it's going to change. I don't see that the person's going to make an effort. Or do you see what I'm saying? I think if emotions are high, you've just had a fight. It's never a good idea to make a massive decision anyway. Not that it's going to happen in a second.
But again, like I said, 9.5 times out of 10, like say you've had quite a lot of fights through years or whatever, quite a lot of the times the parents will say, go back, I'm sure it's not that bad, try to sort it out.
I think 9.5 is completely the wrong figure now. Again, it comes down to the circles that we're in and what we're experiencing, what other people that we know are experiencing. Obviously, it comes down to that. But I feel like there's a lot more support if someone is going to leave and their parents are supporting them. I think the world's changed now. It's not like it used to be. People understand that girls shouldn't be treated like they were in the past, and they don't deserve to be. Although saying that, I was talking to someone. I know you're not going to agree with that, because
I don't agree to that.
I'm
Go
just
on.
about I'm just about to say exactly the same thing. So I was talking to someone where they know someone. That person knows it. It was a friend of a friend.
ਉਹ ਆਂਟੀ ਦੀ ਬਾਬੇ ਦੀ ਮਾਮੇ ਦੀ ਨੌ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ.
Yeah, or he see, right? But basically, she was saying the opposite. You know, this whoever this person was going through domestic violence, and it was quite serious. But her family is not supporting her to leave. And I was like, are you for real? Like in 2022, how can someone not support their child if they are
But it
going?
still happens.
I know, I agree it happens. I agree it happens.
And this is down to education, because
It's not education. It's not education. You know,
what do you think it is then?
People are educated. They know what domestic violence is. Although saying that, when you're in a relationship that is mentally or physically violent, you don't realize that that is actually abuse. When you then reflect on it and you're talking to someone else and like, yeah, this person did this, and you're like, bloody hell, that is the definition.
Exact definition.
The definition of an abusive relationship. Then you reflect on it. But when you're in there, I don't think you think it's an abusive relationship.
But this particular person X, maybe their parents have been through similar things, and they're like, just get on with it. So you don't know what those. I'm not saying it's right at all, but maybe we don't know what the circumstance of those parents are. It's wrong that they're not supporting their child, but maybe they've been through similar things, and they're like, we got on with it. Just get on with it. What are you moaning about?
Let's turn this around then, right? We're talking about if your child was the victim.
Yeah.
What if your child was not the victim and was the one causing the problems?
Oh God, that's a hard one, isn't it? Well, I would call my child out and say,
in a perfect world, though.
No, but right? I think what's wrong's wrong and what's right's right.
But in a perfect world, yeah, in black and white, if if your child is the person in the wrong, yeah, I would definitely call them out. But that's in hindsight. But in real life, I think that's a very different scenario. I think it's a very different story.
That is true, because there are
people tend to stick with their family regardless of what that person has done.
That is true, because there are circumstances where generally, no matter what someone's done, you'll stick to your own, knowing that the person has done wrong, and you'll break off from that other person, the outsider, as you would say. And quite a lot of people do that. They sweep the bad thing under the carpet.
But the problem with this is everyone's always got their perspective. And I've been thinking about this, and I'm like, if you have to lie about your perspective, that's where you know you did something wrong.
But then, don't they say that everyone has their own truth?
Yeah, but
so you might
no, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. It's perspective. I agree with that. But then if you change the story and you know full well that the story has changed, then you're probably the one that has done something wrong. Not that I'm saying you're completely to blame for it, but don't lie about it though either.
But that person probably doesn't realize that they
know. Sometimes
in their mind, they're probably like, no, this is how it happened. That person deserved this because the other person done this, so they deserved it.
Yeah, but that's saying it out of spite. But what is, if you were to sit back, reflect on things? See, like I said, when you're in high emotion, I've got a fight in my mind, right? Where someone came at me, right? The person was very angry, right? So that's fine. Okay, we're both angry now that you've been really rude.
But not that we'd condone that.
Not that I condone it, but wait a second. But then I met them the next day. Now, by this point, I think someone would have calmed down, reflected on their actions, reflected on the other person's reactions and things like that. And at that point, if you were the one that was wrong, you then say sorry. And this is where the problem is. No one in this, well, not no one, let's rephrase that. A lot of people now don't think that you should say sorry for something you've done wrong. And other people are the opposite, where they say sorry too much. And I know I'm well in that group where I'm like, someone bumps into me and I'm so sorry. I'm that kind of person. But I
But
think
this,
this is a big problem where people are not willing to say sorry. And that's a big deal, or especially if you've reflected on a situation. For Your Inspiration is a network created to help women return to work following long-term leave, or for women who are at work but are facing challenges.
at FYI, we are working to break down barriers such as mental health, discrimination, and gaps in skills, which prevent women from returning to a career that they are happy in.
Through our peer-to-peer support groups and workshops, we aim to create an environment where women can gain confidence, share their experiences, and build strong relationships to positively benefit the individual, their employers, and their communities.
FYI, for your inspiration. So when you get to a certain age, the community starts looking you as in, oh my God, you're not married yet. What's wrong with you? So
Or in whatever language they do speak.
yeah,
So,
so they might not speak. Yeah. So they'll think, okay, it's not they think, oh, it's a decision that you've made that you don't want to get married. It's what's wrong with you. And I remember there was this one circumstance where there was a friend, and this particular person was over the age of 40. And this lady came up to us and she goes, oh, I've got a prospective person that you might make a match. And they were like, oh, how old is your friend? And I go, whatever age they were. And this auntie, she goes, oh my God, why didn't you find someone for your friend? Oh my God, they're so old. And I thought, how absolutely disgusting that behavior was.
oh, how absolutely disgusting that
No,
behaviour was.
really,
Yes.
really, it was disgusting the way that the woman, and I had quite a lot of respect for this woman. And when turned around and said that, my respect for this person went out the window.
And this is how long it takes to make respect, but it takes a second to lose it. Just to add that into this.
But that's true. If you look down on someone and put someone down like that, you deserve to have that respect gone.
But
Yeah.
you know, on this point, sometimes, and this is where I'm going to give an example of what's happened to me, and I've said it in the past, where before I would say something like, "Oh, just crack a joke," because that's usually how I start any relationship, with a joke, even if I'm the only one laughing. But I remember I was in a situation where I was like, "Oh, are you looking to have more kids?" I don't know, and it wasn't, that's not that funny. But at the point, it was, just make conversation. And there was a funny
Yeah.
look, and I was like, "Oh my God, why now I do not ask that question." There's certain questions I don't ask. Oh, are you pregnant? Don't ever ask that.
Yeah.
Are you going to have more kids? Don't ever ask that. And the marriage thing is another one where before I'd be happily, because I tend to get quite personal quite quickly with people. I don't see what the point of wasting time is. If I'm going to be friends with you, let's get personal. I don't mind talking about me, so let's talk about you too. But that's another thing. I think I've changed my thought on that. I don't think now if I meet anyone new, and I don't tend to meet that many new people anymore, because I stick to the same circles I'm in. But I don't ask that question anymore. It's up to people. Have got their own issues. I don't know. Sorry.
I mean, a person, just because they're not married, they, like I said, they might choose not to get married, but it's almost like you're rejected from the community.
But the thing is, I think now, again, because once someone's divorced, they tend to be, 40s, 50s, 60s. They tend to be in that age group. And then it's like, well, do you want to know? All right, fair enough. Like, end that conversation. No?
No, it still happens. People still expect the person to get married. Like, that is all there is in life, is just get married.
But you know what? I do understand that question, because I know people where I have, they might be separated, divorced, whatever. And I have asked that question of, oh, would you want to get married? And, you might want to consider it and all that sort of stuff, only because you don't want that person to be lonely. So it comes back to what you said earlier on, the companionship. No
Yeah,
one
but
wants.
you can have friends. You don't have to be married and tied up to have that companionship.
But the problem there is everyone still has to get on with their own lives. Your friend has their own life that they're getting on with. Everyone's busy. Whereas once you do get married, you do tend to get wrapped up in the same life, same, not interest. Maybe you have kids and that sort of stuff. It is a tough one. I get why people ask, and it's not out of spite or anything like that. It's just out of love sometimes. It's a case of, I don't want you to be lonely. as you get older, I don't want you to find, I don't want you to regret not being with someone.
I mean, I was speaking to someone that I knew quite a while ago, and she was saying that she regrets that she didn't have kids.
Exactly, and that's when
And
you
I
don't
felt
want,
sad.
yeah.
I really did feel sad for that person, because I was like, I remember that's when we were younger, that you say, "Oh, I don't want kids," and you were up there like and shouting it from the rooftops. And now that person feels really lonely.
Who? I used to shout it.
No, I
Oh,
said a person.
a person. Sorry, got you. Oh,
And
no.
you've got kids.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about? I don't. No, like I thought you meant when I was younger. I used to. I was like, I don't
No,
remember that.
no, it was a friend, and now they're at a stage where they're like, I feel lonely. Quite a lot of my family people are passing away. Everyone's in their own little lives, and that's the thing. When everyone's in their own little lives and people are married, then everyone kind of starts their own things. But when you're married, you've got your own little almost world.
Yeah. But then you need to fill that world with something. It's like we've been talking. So yesterday, just so the listeners know, I was discussing with you and if some other people that we know of whether we wanted to do the marathon, for example, not a full marathon, half a marathon, because I don't think we'd do a full, just to give us another aim. That's the other part of it. What is the aim of what you want to do? Because at some point you always get bored with whatever you've got. I mean, I tend to get bored quite quickly, which a lot of people know. I've got a job, I get bored after a while. I do something, I get bored, I need something else. I don't know how people do it without, I don't understand.
Although I do credit people when you see they've been married for 50 years, 20 years, and I'm like, wow.
Well done.
Yeah, you deserve a certificate and a gold medal.
A gold medal.
A gold medal. Because it is hard. It's not an easy slog.
It's not an easy slog. Well, what is an easy slog to me? Yeah. Okay, so let's finish this off. Let's give us a final answer, because I feel like I've come around to what you were saying initially and vice versa. If your child said, I do not want to get married, what would you say?
I'd say I'd want to know the reasons of why you didn't want to get married and why you didn't want to go down that path. What would you say?
That's fine. No, I'm joking. I wouldn't say that. But I would say you need to have another aim, because I think every life needs an aim. You need to have something you're working towards.
And marriage is one of those things?
Well, it's one of the things on the tick list, isn't it? So if it's not doing that, then how are you serving the world?
So that's pretty much what our parents done as well then. Saying this is one thing that you need to do. So we're pretty much going to what our parents used to say as well. We're saying that we're going to change, but have we really?
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is the fact that you can have kids with other means, you don't need to be married to be doing that. If that was your aim, to have kids, then and you don't want to get married, there's nothing wrong with it. There's adoption, there's fostering. There's plenty of kids that need looking after. I mean, you just don't want your child or someone you love to be lonely. That's what it comes down to. So sometimes it's all right. Personally, that's what I think. So let's finish this podcast here. We've discussed quite a few serious subjects in regards to this, but it's always food for thought when we've got to think about our kids' future and what advice we'd give them. I think as you go through life, you start realizing more things, you start learning new things, and then you reflect on the experiences you've had. And I think that's really important. Something that you don't agree with that's happening in your life or happened in your life, this is something you need to help change in your kids' lives so that their world is better, so that their community is better. And that's something I've come to a realization of. There's no point of being the problem. Create a solution. And on that point, it's goodbye from me.
And that's goodbye from me.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.